Postponed for now. The federal trial for Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan was supposed to start next month. She's charged with allegedly trying to prevent an undocumented immigrant from being arrested by ICE.
Well, this is getting rather interesting. Judge Hannah Dugan's court case has been postponed until nobody knows.
Federal judge deciding to delay this case. That federal judge saying he wants to rule on an important matter first.
So we are going to dig into all of this new information, such as what is this really big important matter? Why can't we start the court case? Now, before we start the video, make sure to please like the video. It's the #1 way you guys are helping this channel, and the last time we talked about Judge Hannah Dugan, look how awesome of a job you guys did. When you like the video, it helps others see the videos as well, and the proof is in the pudding. Here we go.
The trial for a Milwaukee County judge postponed indefinitely. A federal judge made that decision to delay her trial during a hearing today.
Right, Blake and Deanna, Judge Hannah Dugan was set to go on trial here at the federal courthouse in late July, but today during a hearing, as you mentioned, that federal judge deciding to delay this case. That federal judge saying he wants to rule on an important matter first. He wants to settle a motion to dismiss this case entirely before setting that trial date.
Here's the reality of the situation, and I'm not over-exaggerating. We've never seen anything like this. We have a judge and her defense team arguing it's the job of a judge to help an illegal immigrant walk out the back door and evade ICE, and you have a prosecution who's saying, no, it's not.
With her legal team assembled.
We have been working this case nonstop. We're ready to go to trial.
Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan now has a longer wait for her day in court. It was April 18th. The feds say this video captures the moment Judge Dugan approached immigration agents outside her own courtroom. She's seen directing them to the chief judge's office. As the agents walk away, a different angle shows this man, Eduardo Flores-Ruiz, an undocumented Mexican national, leaving Dugan's courtroom.
So basically, the big question for the judge who's overseeing this case, everything we just saw in that video, is that really the job of a judge? Or is the prosecution correct? That is absolutely not the job of a judge. Leave your comments down below how you feel about this situation.
She has yet to speak publicly on the case, but her legal team Wednesday did for the first time after a federal judge delayed Dugan's trial as they await a ruling on their motion to dismiss the case entirely.
The motion that's pending is obviously has implications that are wide-ranging. So to give the time to do that is understandable.
Okay, that is an understatement. The implications are extremely massive, and this is why you should subscribe to my channel, because we've been covering this case very closely. If Judge Hannah Dugan wins this court case, every single thing you saw in that video, no matter what kind of judge you are, you can do what Judge Hannah Dugan did. You can end a court case in the middle of the hearing, walk out into a hallway, tell Homeland Security to get out of the way, and have an illegal immigrant walk out the back door. These are massive implications.
But obviously we're ready to go.
Dugan's legal team wants the case dismissed, claiming the actions Dugan took as a judge are protected.
I think that the government is really trying to criminalize things that might have been said in the courtroom. And at the end of the day, you've all seen the video. This gentleman walked right by one of the agents who was in the hallway, and nothing happened.
So this is actually a new piece of information we have not heard before yet. The defense lawyer saying the illegal immigrant, well, he was able to walk right past Homeland Security and nothing happened. So I find it rather interesting they're looking to tie that into the court case. That's the first time we've ever heard this. Now, what's interesting about this court case, because the judge overseeing this court case has no other cases to compare this one to, here's what keeps happening as well.
You may have heard on the news something called an amicus brief or an amicus brief, and it means friend of the court. And these are documents that are filed by a group or an individual that are not part of the original lawsuit, but have an interest in the case. And so they can provide additional data, expertise, context, talking about the societal impact of the case, and they're a really important part of the legal process.
So I just want to point out, when the defense lawyer for Hannah Dugan is saying the U.S. government is trying to politicize this case, you actually have a lot of outside help or friends of the court who are helping both sides, from Judge Hannah Dugan and the prosecution.
And Hannah, what do prosecutors have to say about this motion to dismiss?
Yeah, so they call the defense's stance of judicial immunity not a valid argument in this case. I did reach out to the Department of Justice earlier today to see if they wanted to discuss this trial now being pushed back, but they declined to comment.
Now, there's another part of this story I think you'll find interesting, and it gives us a really good insight into the U.S. court system. The judge who's overseeing this case knows, no matter what he says, it's going straight to appeals, so he's not going to waste his time and bring this entire court case into the actual trial. He's like, hey, let's settle all of this first. Is Judge Hannah Dugan doing her job as a judge, or is the prosecution correct? Is she wrong?
So both sides agree to postpone until that motion is dismissed, or that motion to dismiss is resolved. But here's the key. Once a decision is reached, even if that's in the next 30 days, the judge expects it will likely be appealed by either side. So Judge Lynn Edelman telling the lawyers he's going to move as fast as he can, but he also wants to do it right. So for now, no trial, Steve.
And again, emphasis on no trial. Like, we literally have a no trial date for a judge who was arrested by the FBI for helping an illegal immigrant evade ICE. But again, her team is arguing she did the right thing. She was doing her job as a judge. This is within the scope of being a judge. Everyone knows this.
But before there can be a trial, her team wants the case dismissed, saying whatever happened in the courtroom falls under judicial immunity.
Based on the motion that we filed and all of the case law, that she is immune from this prosecution, that it shouldn't have even been brought in the first place. So obviously that does have to get resolved.
In documents, federal prosecutors push back, saying the motion is an unprecedented dismissal on grounds of judicial immunity, ignoring well-established law. They argue Dugan's desired ruling would, in essence, say that judges are above the law.
Once the mainstream starts covering this court case, I think the majority of Americans will realize how big of a deal this court case really is. Because like I said, any judge in the United States can do exactly what Judge Hannah Dugan did. If this case gets dismissed, we will now have the one court case other judges can look to as far as comparing an example of what a judge can do. And that means facilitating a hallway to get people out of the way. And if it happens to be an illegal immigrant, that's fine. But it could also be an American citizen where that person also gets some help from the judge.
The man Judge Dugan is charged with helping appeared in Milwaukee County Court today. Eduardo Flores-Ruiz is now set to go on trial in October before a different judge. He's facing 3 misdemeanor counts of domestic abuse. Federal agents eventually captured him outside of the courthouse that day in April and took him into custody.
Now, just a simple observation, as somebody who covers cases like this every day, again, make sure to please subscribe for more cases like this. We hardly are seeing any politicians actually talk about this court case as far as Judge Hannah Dugan or the illegal immigrant who was detained in the hallway or outside the hallway. Typically nowadays, we're seeing politicians get arrested for defending illegal immigrants in these hallways, but we really have crickets as far as this case.
The case is being highly litigated. Shortly after she was indicted in federal court, Hannah Dugan's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss, basically saying, listen, she's being prosecuted for undertaking official acts that she was doing as a judge. She has the control of her courtroom. Judges have control of courthouses. Those are official acts that since 1607, the common law has decided that judicial acts are immune to prosecution. Of course, the government has a different view of this, saying that trying to conceal and obstruct the arrest of this undocumented person did not constitute an official act. It was outside of her duties as a judge.
You know, these types of videotapes always make it more difficult for the defense. I spent much of my career as a criminal defense attorney, and that type of visual evidence makes it very difficult because there's no denying what occurred here. What the judge is trying to say is that she has immunity, that what she was doing as a judge. I find that pretty hard to understand. You know, if you are an NFL linebacker, you have a right to tackle people on the field. You don't have a right to go out in the parking lot and start tackling people. You had the same situation as a member of Congress. You had protections under speech and debate on what you said on the floor. But when you left the floor, you lost those special protections. This video shows that same line here. She first tells these agents to go speak to the chief judge. She falsely tells them that they cannot conduct an arrest in the hallway, which is not true. She tells them to go talk to the chief judge. And what does he say in response? He says, of course you can carry out the arrest in the hallway. So she was wrong. So she left her courtroom, and even though she was wearing a robe, that was not part of her courtroom, it was not part of her proceeding. She was facilitating someone's escape from federal authority. And I don't see how that fits into any judicial function.
What's rather fascinating about all of this, again, we all seem to have very different interpretations of what we're seeing in the video footage. However, I do want to point out, Judge Hannah Dugan had 150 former judges actually vouch for her. In one of those amicus briefings or friends of the court, she had 150 former judges write a letter and say, look, this is totally something within the wheelhouse of a judge. This is what we have to do. We're here to protect the courtroom, the courthouse, doesn't matter, it's the same thing. Regardless if a hallway is generally made for the public, apparently judges have actually written down this is within the scope of what a judge should do.
Rare for victims to want to cooperate. They wanted to cooperate. They were sitting in the courtroom with the state prosecutor. The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom, you're not going to believe this, takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out a private exit and tells them to leave, while a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
Wow.
You know, Madam Attorney General.
I have played this clip before, but again, I want to remind people, and for the new viewers, what's at stake. If you're unaware, again, Judge Hannah Dugan was in the middle of a court hearing dealing with something very serious, and regardless of all of this, the man is an illegal immigrant. So no matter what, he's probably and will be deported. So Judge Hannah Dugan took it upon herself, again, to leave the courtroom and hearing and go talk to the Homeland Security agents. And this is the ultimate problem the DOJ federal government has. Is a judge really supposed to be doing that? Is that really within the scope of operation for a judge?
Because if you look at the end of that tape, what happens when he runs out of the building? He runs right in front of a car, and those agents that have to follow him in that traffic. What if the car had hit him? What if they hit an agent? That's what happens when you allow someone you facilitate their escape and move it into a public area. That's exactly what the agents wanted to avoid, because in a hallway in a courtroom, people you know are not armed. It's a closed space. You can prepare for it. Now, in terms of her punishment, quite frankly, I think this judge is hoping for jury nullification. I think she's hoping this is a very liberal district. She'll get a very favorable jury. She just got a remarkably favorable judge. She was assigned randomly a judge who was rebuked because he had written and said things publicly that were raw and political against Trump and against the conservatives on the Supreme Court. So I think she's certainly hoping that she's in a good district. She's not going to serve any jail time here. But the question is, what is the bar going to do about it? You know, when a judge earlier helped someone escape like this, the charges were dropped years later by the Biden administration. And the question is there going to be any real responsibility here?
All right, so this is where we're at with the Judge Hannah Dugan case. We have a judge overseeing this case who most likely doesn't want to be responsible for changing the entire course of American history, and I understand this is a massive deal. And so most likely this will go to trial. I don't think that federal judge wants to deal with this. However, there's going to be appeals back and forth. Make sure to please like the video. Make sure to please subscribe to this video so you can get some more updates. We've been following this literally since day one, so we're all in on this case. Thank you guys so much for being here. God bless, and we'll see you all later. Thank you so much.